tomorrow morning. I got the Phillies on one screen. I got the Thursday football on another screen. And my attention was pretty heavy into those two and those two alone. I really did not have, I don't want to say I had no interest because that's a bit aggressive, but I didn't have a ton of interest in what was going on with the college football game. I glanced and watched the, West Virginia and Virginia Tech game in between commercial breaks for the other games. But my attention was solely on one, the Phillies, and two, Thursday Night Football. And I thought there were a couple things that stood out to me very much from last night's sports action. Number one, I think the Phillies are very fortunate to have won that game last night. There were a lot of poor, shall I call it, officiated calls last night. There was at least 3 instances where it felt like the umpires were just doing a bad job. And the fact that the Phillies won 1-0 is really a testament to their pitching and how hard they fought to stay in that game, because it felt like for most of the game, their offense couldn't do anything right. And on a national stage where I know that the official statement said one thing about attendance, but if you go based on what it looked like on television last night, it looked like almost nobody was there last night, which is extremely, extremely disappointing. The attendance figure says 21,000 last night. My eyeballs felt like it was more like 10,000 because every time the national feed would show different angles out there, I kept seeing empty seats. So for an impressive win in 2 straight games where you could argue the Phillies were, shall I call it, lucky to have won the game, there's still nobody in the ballpark. And that's extremely disappointing. It's disappointing that the national broadcast was just so blatant in their showing of that. Maybe now, look, I'll admit I didn't have the audio on for most of that game because where I was at, the audio was on Thursday Night Football. But I have to assume that you're not showing those empty seats for no good reason. Like you would have hoped they might have mentioned it at some point in the telecast. I don't know if they did or not. I certainly would have. Because if I am those guys on that broadcast, if I'm AJ Przinsky on the color, right? And I'm sitting there talking about this game as a player, I got to bring up the fact that I'm looking around and I'm seeing a ballpark that 10 years ago would have been jam-packed to the gills. No pun intended for Mike Gill. You have a stadium that now has barely 21,000 people in it. And it just looked bad on television. So for as much as I say, hey, the Phillies broke their losing streak on Wednesday, they had a very things going their way kind of game for the most part to win on Thursday. They've won 2 straight now after a 5-game losing streak. The fans are not getting up for this game. This is the final homestand of the year, and people are just indifferent to that game. At some point, there's got to be a, I don't know what it is, a point of like, where you got to get to this crossroads as a fan base to say, this team is not going to be home for the rest of the year after this weekend. It's what, a 10-game road trip? And you're sitting there with almost nobody in the building. That was extremely disappointing last night. I can only hope that they get more the next 3 days. Because 1, it's the final homestand of the year. 2, this team is on the precipice of doing something that has not been done by this organization since 2011. That's make the playoffs. And 3, I see all the people on social media talking smack. People text into the show 609-403-0973. They DM us through the 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle, and they talk about the Phillies. But the interest is just not, it's not juiced. And in a world where there are people who maybe they're not excited about Aaron Judge hitting 61, 62 home runs, it feels like baseball has fallen off across the board because of football. And there's really no solution to this moving forward. There's really no solution to how do we rectify this? Well, you can't. You can't really rectify it because of the fact that unless baseball is going to change their calendar, you're always going to have a situation where when September rolls around, there's going to be a mass of people in multiple markets who are going to neglect their baseball team. Because unless you're New York with the Yankees and Mets, or St. Louis with the Cardinals, or Chicago with the Cubs when they're actually competitive, you don't really pay attention to the baseball team that closely. Aside from that 4 or 5 year run of the Phillies, this city has always been a football town first. And it's just a shame watching these games and seeing all those empty seats. All right, let's get to the Eagles news. Of course, Josh Hennig hanging out with you here on GameNight, 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle, being brought to you by my friends Jenkins and Sons. Homeowners trust Jenkins Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning, and business owners trust Jenkins too. Call Jenkins for leak stoppages and renovations because Jenkins technicians are trained to do it all. Renovating your kitchen or bath? Call Jenkins. For new heating and air conditioning installation, service, and maintenance, ductless air conditioning systems, water heaters, boilers, oil service, plumbing and drain cleaning services. Call 609-641-6262 and visit them online at jenkinsandsons.com. Don't forget, we'll dig deeper into the NFL with Andy McNamara and fantasy football with him coming up in about 10 minutes from now. But we got to get to the Eagles news. If you didn't see the alert from the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, or you missed when Mike Gill brought it up during Football on Forts Day on the Sports Bash, there is one of note injury on the injury report. And whenever an injury pops up on Friday that wasn't there the previous day or two, there's always going to be a concern. And the concern is this. Landon Dickerson did not practice with a foot issue. Now, a foot issue is very vague. So I'm going to give you the glass half full and then the glass half empty. The glass half full is a foot could mean anything. You know, he could have pulled a muscle in his arch. You know, maybe his foot is bothering him from some sort of previously sustained injury issue, and they're just giving him a day off to rest it a little bit more before Sunday. There's a few reasons, few possibilities why he might be out that are not serious. But the other side of a glass half full is a glass half empty. And that is this. Injury showing up at the end of the week is always problematic. And there's no way around the fact that without Landon Dickerson, this team is going to have some serious problems. Now, it doesn't mean they can't win the game. But there is a drop-off from Landon Dickerson to Sua Opeta. There is a legitimate, realistic drop-off. Again, it's not that the Eagles can't win the game, but maybe your game plan has to be modified. Now, for some people out there, what I'm about to say may excite you, and from others, you might be rolling your eyes. while you listen on 97.3 ESPN FM or the 97.3 ESPN mobile app or wherever you're catching the show. Appreciate you joining me here on a Friday night. You might have to run the ball more. And I don't mean with Jalen Hurts. This is a Washington team that is one of the worst scoring defenses in the NFL this year. This team is not equipped defensively to stop if the Eagles come out there and just decide to gash them with the run. They are 25th in rushing yards allowed this year as a defense. They are 26th in total yards allowed is Washington. They don't have a very good defense, which is surprising for a head coach like Ron Rivera and for a defense coordinator like Jack Del Rio to be so just not good. You got a poor run defense. You got a poor scoring defense. If you don't have Landon Dickerson out there, this might be a situation where you might have to blow them off the line at the beginning of the game, pass in the middle, and then just grind them to a pulp at the end. This may very well be what has to happen, because I don't know how this team that hasn't really played that well on the offensive line the first 2 weeks of the year. I mean, they were really poor in the first week. Last week, they had 6 penalties. The first week, they kept missing assignments. In the second week, they just keep going for these, it just felt unnecessary, half those calls. I mean, it just felt like they were just nitpicking at that point. So, look, if I'm being honest with you guys, I look at this game as, why don't you just let them go after Washington's front seven? Why don't you just tell Mailata, Kelsey, Sayamalu, Lane Johnson, and whoever plays left guard in this game, go put some pain on the other side of the field? Because I'm not 100% sure that this offensive line without Dickerson is going to play that well. Now, again, that's if he doesn't play. There is a possibility he does play this game, but we'll have to wait and see. Josh Hennig hanging out with you here on GameNight, 97.3 ESPN FM and 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Seattle. We'll dig deeper into fantasy football and the NFL on the other side with Fantasy Sports Insider Andy McNamara. He doing this every Friday to talk football. And, of course, check out what you guys have to say throughout the hour. Keep them coming in. DM the show through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Seattle City. And the text board is open here on Game Night with me, Josh Hennig, at 609-403-0973.
This is the radio home for Philadelphia Eagles football. The Eagles continue the 2022 season this Sunday in Washington against the Commanders.
He is going deep for Quez Watkins, who has it, goes in for the touchdown. The slice to Quez Watkins.
Pre-game coverage starts at noon with Merrill Reese and Mike Quick calling all the action starting at 1 p.m. This is where the Philadelphia Eagles play. 97.3 ESPN, South Jersey's official Eagle station.
Just because summer is over doesn't mean the Jersey Fresh season is. New Jersey Department of Agriculture wants to remind you that all Jersey Fresh fall favorites are now harvesting. Apples, beets, broccoli, squashes, spinach, and so much more. Get real local Jersey Fresh.
Something you probably do know. Progressive can not only offer you a great price when you bundle home and auto, they offer you round-the-clock protection. Something you probably don't know, the average garage door is made up of 1.3 millimeter aluminum panels. Something you probably do know, your neighbor likes to tinker with his dirt bike. Something you probably don't know, a runaway dirt bike can take out your garage door and a good portion of your car bumper. Bundle your home and auto with Progressive and get more than a great price. Get round-the-clock protection. Something you know for the things you don't know. Coverage from Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and third-party insurers and subject to policy terms. Bundle discount not available in all states or situations.
Hey, this is Josh Hennig reminding you to kick off football season at FanDuel Sportsbook at Bally's in Atlantic City. Bet, watch, and win all season long. Plus, enjoy your favorite games from all over the world with 10 betting kiosks, 5 betting windows, 13 big screen TVs, and plenty of comfortable seating. Just head over to FanDuel Sportsbook at Bally's to get in on all the action this season. FanDuel wants every bettor's experience to be enjoyable and fun. Visit FanDuel.com/playwell to learn more. Must be 21 or older to play in present in New Jersey. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
O'Reilly.
Improve fuel mileage with Chevron Techron Fuel System Cleaner at O'Reilly Auto Parts. A clean fuel system can increase your vehicle's performance and gas mileage. Get Chevron Techron Fuel System Cleaner starting at $9.99 and earn 10 times O rewards points on your purchase. Get the most out of every gallon. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts or shop O'ReillyAuto.com today.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
At my age, I never dreamed I'd be dealing with opioid addiction.
I was pregnant and I couldn't stop.
Getting sidelined by an injury was bad, but the cravings were way worse.
Then I heard about 844-REACH-NJ.
They connected me to treatment and I had a healthy baby.
844-REACH-NJ was the call that made the difference.
Thank goodness I made the call.
So glad I made the call for both of us.
REACH-NJ. If you or someone you love is struggling with addiction, call 844-REACH-NJ from the New Jersey Department of Human Services.
You can't get much for $5 these days, unless you go to Wendy's for a $5 Biggie Bag. Get your choice of double stack, junior bacon cheeseburger, or crispy chicken BLT, plus 4-piece nugs, fries, and a drink, all for just $5.
You got that bag. You got that Biggie Bag. You got that bag.
That was smooth, wasn't it? That's how you're going to feel when you get that Biggie Bag at Wendy's.
U.S. price and participation may vary. Includes 4-piece nuggets, small soft drink, and small fry. Prices may be higher in Alaska and Hawaii.
Introducing the next-gen Acura Integra. Featuring an available 6-speed manual transmission, a VTEC turbo engine, and available ELS Studio 3D audio system.
Legendary.
And its most important feature, you. The next-gen Acura Integra. Your turn.
Visit your Delaware Valley Acura dealer to find your Acura today.
If you're one of the 100 million Americans who suffer from high blood pressure, this is for you. New Vicks NyQuil High Blood Pressure is specially formulated for people with high blood pressure. NyQuil High Blood Pressure is sugar-free and alcohol-free. NyQuil High Blood Pressure is also decongestant-free, unlike some ordinary cold medicines. So look for Vicks NyQuil High Blood Pressure, the nighttime sniffling, sneezing, coughing, aching, fever, sore throat, cold, and flu for people with high blood pressure medicine. Use as directed.
Ocean Casino Resort is the ultimate fantasy draft party spot. Go for the bragging rights this fantasy football season and plan your draft party at Top Golf. Each party receives a dedicated VIP draft space or private bay at Top Golf for up to 4 hours, an ocean draft board, swag bag, championship trophy, and more. Your fantasy football season starts here at Ocean Casino Resort. For more details, visit theoceanac.com. Go to Ocean. Go for the win. Let's go! Must be 21 or older to wager or consume alcohol. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
And Doug.
Hey, listener. Welcome to Limu's Karaoke Lounge, where Liberty Mutual customizes your car insurance so you only pay for what you need, and the music never stops. Hit it. There's an emu with a full-time job. His partner's Doug, but Limu's the heartthrob. Grubs and worms, that's what Limu eats. Gotta fuel up to save you money and hit the streets. Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Listen up, South Jersey football fans. Are you interested in solar? Want a free roof? EMT Solar and Roofing has you covered. Visit ESPNsolar.com to see if your home qualifies for a free roof with solar installation. Don't wait, act now. Start saving thousands and virtually extinguish your electric bill. ESPNsolar.com is the place to go for your roofing or solar needs. No commitments, no hidden fees. Go to ESPNsolar.com to see if you qualify.
You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig here, Game Night, 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app. football conversation. GameNight being brought to you by my friends over at the FanDuel Sportsbook inside Bally's off the boardwalk in Atlantic City. Bet, watch, and win all football season long. College football tomorrow, NFL on Sunday, Monday Night Football Monday. They got all the action right off the boardwalk inside Bally's, right off the boardwalk in Atlantic City. FanDuel wants every bettor's experience to be enjoyable and fun. Visit FanDuel.com/playwell to learn more. Must be 21 or to play. And present in New Jersey to bet online. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Well, I was very happy about last night's game for a very different reason than my guest on Fridays, because he was happy because he's a Browns fan. I was happy because the game hit the over 39. And that was my pick last night. So to join us, talk more football and fantasy football, insider himself, Andy McNamara, is back. Andy, I don't know if you have enough orange on.
Brother, I am decked out. I got my Cleveland Maserati brown shirt. I got my hat. I got the banners in the back. Anytime you beat the Pittsburgh Steelers in their pea yellow terrible
So
towels.
just to let you know, I had no idea what you just said, Andy, because I'm having a bit of a tech issue here that I have to fix. So just give me 1 sec here.
Okay.
Now
problem.
Me and the world can hear you.
You got me now?
I got you now.
There we go.
We
I was
didn't
just
have
my
you.
hot promo. Let's cut my hot promo. Cut me off.
Here, just to pull the curtain back, the show before me, the Sports Bash with Mike Gill, has to have the settings one way on the computer, and I don't need those settings. So, and I completely forgot about that. So sorry about that.
So let me get this straight. Mike Gill, first of all, for the fantasy team, complains about missing the draft or if he forgets about it. Now he's messing with the settings. Sabotage, collusion. Josh Hennig. My goodness. Oh, I'm doing good though, brother. I'm doing great. I'm doing great. The Browns, like you said, I'm decked out in orange. I got my Browns hat, my Cleveland Maserati shirt, my banner in the back, because anytime you beat the Pittsburgh Steelers, those pea yellow, not gold, Josh, pea yellow, terrible towels in Cleveland, it's a great day. I don't care how it looks. That was a fun night.
I was actually sitting next to a young lady from Ohio, but she's a Bengals fan. But she said she was rooting for the Browns because everyone's against Pittsburgh. That was kind of like her position.
Okay, I'll take it. And you know what? The Bengals are the little brother to the Browns because they were founded both by Paul Brown, right? So while I wish the Bengals ill will, I don't hate them like I do the Steelers or Ravens, if that makes sense.
Although you got to get the elf off the middle of the field, man.
Oh,
it looks
dude,
ridiculous on television.
I know. It looks ridiculous in any case. Fans voted it in, people. And I got to say, I did not. They gave 4 options, 2 helmets, 2 different types of elves. And they got the elf. It looks ridiculous. I already have enough problems, Josh, being a Browns fan. I don't need an elf, little stupid elf, looking at me. And I'm
staring at you the whole game.
Staring at you with those dead eyes. It's apparently Jake Trotter of ESPN wrote a great article on the history of Brownie the Elf. Apparently it comes from English folklore in the 16th century or something.
Yeah, which is great. Has nothing to do with the Browns for me.
Yes. You have a dog pound.
Right.
Dog. Or nothing. Or a helmet.
Just put the helmet.
Not an elf.
Put the Browns helmet there. Put the I would have put
Fans
just
voted it.
I just would have put a dog. That's what I would have done. Dog
Look at
pound in the
that.
middle of the field. Boom.
Thank you. Boom. Don't have to worry about it. But now there's a giant elf. Apparently, too, the elf merchandise in Cleveland is out of hand. It's out of control. So I may not be getting a new bit of Browns gear this year when I go down week 6 to see Cleveland take on New England.
Well, honestly, they all might be drunk who are buying those things, but
they very much, yeah.
Is Nick Chubb the best running back in fantasy football now?
Dude, I think so. I really do. They are. So we have a few factors. You have the Browns offensive line, which was already looking tremendous in the first 2 weeks. You get Jack Conklin back at right tackle. Significant. And the fill in James Hudson was doing great. So you upgrade an already great offensive line. Then you have Kareem Hunt, who I really think is a key cog in this, because whether they're on the field at the same time or he spells them, it keeps Chubb fresh. And then you just keep hammering the defenses. And I just love the slow motions and all the replays. Brian Baldinger does a great job on Twitter of breaking down the tape. The jump cuts of Nick Chubb. It's just, if you could paint like the Mona Lisa, it's just art. He can go through you. He can go around you. He can catch the ball. I really do think that Nick Chubb is the best running back in regular football and fantasy football. He just has to stay healthy because last couple of years he's missed a few games.
He has. I really felt like last night's game ultimately came down to the trenches, which is ironic because we don't talk about trenches in fantasy football a lot. But in football, your fantasy best player may not do well if your offensive line isn't blocking for them. Yeah. And I got to tell you, with how poorly the Colts have looked for the first 2 weeks, and considering the fact that for some people, they're grateful they drafted DeAndre Swift right now instead of, like Elijah Mitchell, for example. Nick Chubb right now is looking like the golden child for fantasy football owners.
Yep, and you probably got him, Josh. What, pick 6, 7, 8? Like he wasn't. McCaffrey was going before him. Jonathan Taylor, right?
Barkley.
Barkley, a whole bunch. So you not only have the best back if you got him, you probably got him with a mid-first round pick, which is looking like tremendous value right now. And Kareem Hunt is very much looking like a guy you could also put in as a standalone flex option with handcuff appeal if anything were to happen to Nick Chubb. So the Browns back, it's all about the running game because you don't want to put too much on Jacoby Brissett. That being said, Josh, Amari Cooper is working his way back-to-back consecutive 100-yard receiving games for the first time for a Browns player since Josh Gordon in 2013. Can you believe that? Amari Cooper has worked his way up to a WR3 level with some WR2 upside on my fantasy team. So
I will just repeat what Michael Robinson said last night on NFL Network. The Cowboys should have found a way to keep Amari Cooper.
Yeah, he's looked tremendous. Tremendous.
Instead, you have Noah Brown, which is the reincarnation of Travis Fulgham down there in Dallas. So, let's get to some of the news items for fantasy football people, and we'll get to some of the games specifically as well here with Andy McNamara here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN at AndyMC81. The big news is Justin Herbert is listed as questionable. Now, here's the point to make with this. If you go to the rest of the Chargers injury report, there are 1, 2, 3 players who are doubtful for the game. One of them is not Herbert. So I ask you, Andy McNamara, knowing that Corey Linsley is doubtful and J.C. Jackson is doubtful, but Herbert is questionable, should that make fantasy football owners feel maybe a little more optimism?
Well, okay, so you're hosting the Charger or the Jaguars here.
Yep.
This is those type of rib injuries always concern me because even if you're feeling relatively fine, you have the flat jacket on, you're one sack away from that changing drastically. And then you go to Chase Daniel. Big problem. Question is, do you want to be the guy, the fantasy owner, to leave Justin Herbert on your bench against the Jacksonville Jaguars? I wouldn't. I would probably roll the dice with it. Keenan Allen still not 100%. You go in Josh Palmer, Mike Williams, Eckler had a bad drop last week. Where do we go? The Chargers team it's interesting because it hasn't been as fantasy fire as we were originally anticipating, at least this point in the season. So you have to really keep in mind that you put Justin Herbert in, be mentally prepared. That one wrong hit and his butt could be gone for a while.
Another quarterback I want to ask you about is Tom Brady. Not because I'm saying don't start Tom Brady, but no Mike Evans due to suspension. Chris Godwin, he's been ruled out. Julio Jones, questionable, didn't play last week. Rashard Perryman, we know he's a boomer bust guy. He's questionable as well. Is this a situation where you start getting nervous about Brady being in your lineup?
I think yes. And the reason is if we look at Tom Brady through the first 2 weeks, strictly fantasy-wise, and remember, Tom Brady is one of those quarterbacks like a Matt Stafford, like a Matt Ryan, although we're not playing Matt Ryan, of course, where if he's not throwing 300 yards and not throwing a pick and not getting 3 touchdowns, he's not doing much for you, right? And through we had 212 passing yards week 1, 190 in week 2, and singular touchdowns and an interception. Not good fantasy numbers at all, less than 12 in both games. Now you mix in those injuries you talked about and are continuing here. That's a big issue. So if I'm looking against the Packers, if I have another choice, certainly in DFS, I'm not playing Tom Brady. If I have another choice on my bench, I honestly, Josh, this might sound nuts. It's against the Eagles. I would play Carson Wentz over Tom Brady this week. The guy's almost got you 30 fantasy points 2 weeks in a row. I'm not going to say no until he makes me say no.
I will say no for this reason. I think that if the Eagles defense is somewhere in between week 1 and week 2, Carson Wentz is in trouble.
Especially Darius Slay. Ooh, baby.
Well, how about this? There were a lot of people on the Eagles by the time Wentz was out of here who are still here.
Right.
So you have to wonder how many of these guys who know Wentz, who know his tendencies, who know his little isms that he does, are those guys like Brandon Graham and Josh Sweat talking to each other, being like, hey, when Wentz drops back on the 3-step drop, he always looks one direction versus another. And that's how we get him. Like, how much of that could be going on here?
Well, exactly. That's always the question when it comes down to familiarity, right? And it's not like Carson Wentz has the same advantage because it's a new coaching staff. So you don't have that same, it's a new vibe. So you don't have that same potential advantage coming from the Carson Wentz side. Absolutely. I just love how he's been able to distribute the ball. Not perfect from real life perspective. He's thrown interceptions, of course.
Right.
But Ron Rivera is letting this offense fly. It's been looking pretty fun, to be honest, right? Like you're Logan Thomas for tight end. Hallelujah. We have a tight end back and you can put in a fantasy lineup that you didn't have to draft. Hallelujah. Logan Thomas is there. We like Antonio Gibson. Curtis Samuel popped as well, right? Like you can go up and down the list. It's been really nice where I would say, again, drifting back to the Buccaneers for a second, I really like, and I had last week as my Danger Zone pick on my Sunday show on twitch.tv/Ultimate Fantasy Sports. I had Scotty Miller as the sort of desperation, possession-wise PPR. Tom Brady has looked to those zippy little wide receivers his whole career. Scotty Miller could have a real play and it looks like Brashad Perryman is going to play. I really do like, and you said it right, boom or bust, but I really like Brashad Perryman in this role as well. So I think for, again, DFS, maybe a little salary cap, you're filling in the blank, or you're in desperation mode, you need a flex or something. I wouldn't say no to a Scotty Miller or a Perryman in a PPR.
The Eagles were playing Washington on Sunday, and I got to wonder, like, Ron Rivera has been around the NFL, for 30 years between playing and coaching. Jack Del Rio, he's been all around the league. You have 2 defensive-minded coaches, and they have a defense that's 29th in the NFL in points allowed per game. They have a 25th run defense. They have a bottom third of the league pass defense. Like, how does that happen? How do you have 2 defensive-minded coaches and your defense is statistically that bad?
Yeah, it's bizarre, right? Because automatically you think, well, that should be the strongest part, right? Should be the strongest part. And it really isn't. Answer-wise, I don't know, Josh. It's just, maybe it's one of those, how often have we seen in the last number of years with preseason being cut down, with just starters playing, take some teams, some players longer to ramp up. Sometimes those first 3-4 games are preseason. I would want to know, when we revisit this midseason, are we seeing the same type of thing, or are we seeing guys get back on track? I just think this Eagles-Commanders game might be, in your market, your listeners are going to be looking forward to it. But nationally, I think this is going to be a sneaky, entertaining game. I don't think enough people are talking about how entertaining this game could be from an offensive side. Jalen Hurts, and fantasy-wise too, Miles Sanders very quietly has become a rock-solid RB2 for your fantasy team. I love 17 touches last week.
Well, it's funny you brought him up because the news came out today that Landon Dickerson did not practice.
Ooh.
Now, he was practicing, and then today, it's the ambiguous foot issue.
Right.
That could be anything. he could have, he could have had like ingrown toenail surgery for all I know. Like, I don't know what that means. It could mean anything. But I'll tell you this: if Dickerson is not playing this Sunday, I'm running the ball, Andy. I'm not chucking it. And that might be where the real value for Miles Sanders is, because he looks like he has consistently been RB1 for this offense. And if they decide to run the ball more than they pass the ball on Sunday, fantasy football owners of Miles Sanders might be the beneficiaries.
I totally agree. And also, depending on the strategy, might benefit Jalen Hurts owners as well. We know, obviously, he can run the football too. And Josh, I have to say, every week, like we've been talking about, look at the performance of Jalen Hurts that keeps getting better, man. Like early in the season, yada, yada, cliche, whatever. But gosh, I'm really getting that franchise QB vibe out of Jalen Hurts. I really am. I think he just keeps proving it. Not fully there yet, but just keeps proving it. And this will be an interesting test too. And what's the game plan call? Is he going to be running around? Is he still going to be able to throw? Is it something where maybe this benefits a Devonta Smith type of situation where has to get the ball out quick? You put Smith maybe in the slot or something. I don't know. Or you keep heaving it to A.J. Brown. But that Brown Hurts connection with Miles Sanders in that background has this Eagles offense even more fun than I thought it was going to be in the preseason.
Couple more games I want to ask you about, Andy, before I let you go. Andy McNamara at AndyMC81 on Twitter for all of your NFL and fantasy football and sports analysis and coverage. Shaq Leonard has been ruled out for the Colts-Chiefs game. So look, Pat Mahomes, Travis Kelce, they're must starts no matter what. We get that. But what about the other guys? Juju, Hardman, MVS, right? Yeah. What are you doing with those guys? Are you maybe moving them up the list a little bit because you know that, hey, maybe you're a Chris Godwin owner, or maybe you're one of those people who has a guy who's down and out, like Jerry Jeudy, for example. Are you looking at maybe the Chiefs' other receivers as a play this week?
I'm really not, Josh, and I understand the absence on the Colts side, but it's just the ball is just at this point being spread around too much to anybody not named Travis Kelce. That's my problem. I'm not against playing Juju. I think Juju can be a fine receiver in this offense. But when you look at, and I wish I remembered the stat, but there was something like he's either not running the routes that Mahomes likes because Mahomes just isn't looking at him. He's not looking at him. So again, I don't mind that, but MVS is a crapshoot. That's his that's even to me more Hail Mary this week than playing a Brashard Perryman. There's going to be a game this year where MVS goes off and he has like an 80-yard touchdown run and people go, oh, go pick up MVS off. But it's going to be few and far between and it's going to be unpredictable. So if you can't predict it, I try to avoid it. So I would, if I have to start one of those extra guys, I'd say Juju, but I would try again to not rely on them as, if you don't have to.
All right, before I let you go, I'm going to go back to the NFC East. Monday Night Football is Dallas at New York. I got to ask you about one specific guy, though, because I'm seeing a lot of people all of a sudden jumping on his train. And I got some questions because I understand that Tony Pollard is a hot name in the fantasy football world right now, but he's still playing on the same team with Zeke Elliott, still playing behind a garbage offensive line, still playing with Cooper Rush, and his owner is still Jerry Jones. So, what do you advise people who have Tony Pollard what they should do this weekend?
Tony Pollard can be considered nothing more than a fringe flex starter, period. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that he isn't somebody that you can put in your flex starter. You're absolutely right. The love for Tony Pollard, you're right. It's like Ezekiel Elliott is still there and he's playing well. Right. And like you said, the offensive line, and you still got all those other factors. So Tony Pollard, we saw last week, 17.8 fantasy points in PPR. Week 1, 3.2. Okay. So you're having too much up and down. Is he going to get some volume? Perhaps. The Giants a good opponent? Yeah. But this is a case where you have to be prepared. You start Tony Pollard, you got to be prepared for single-digit outcomes. In my flex spot, I always tried, if I even have to play it safer, I always try to think, okay, who in my flex is most likely to get me into the double digits, whether that's 10 on the nose or more. That's what you have to look at. There is nothing saying that Tony Pollard is going to do that. He might, but there's nothing saying that he should. Try to get a starting guy. Look always at that depth chart. Look at the opportunity. Opportunity equals success, Josh. I say it all the time. Is Tony Pollard going to have enough opportunity versus the Giants to make him fantasy relevant?
Give him a follow on Twitter at AndyMC81. Decked out in his Browns gear.
Woo!
Still celebrating the win last night. You know, I assume that's why I didn't hear from you for about 12 hours, is because you were still recovering from the victory lap.
That's right, man. And listen, you beat the Steelers. Like I said, it feels so good. And I was chirping. I had my Victory Monday mug up. The kids, if the Browns win, I make my kids chocolate chip pancakes, and they were all cheering. They loved it. So on Twitter, people coming out was like, oh, it's like, hey, you know what? You lost. Stick it. Steelers stink. Go Browns. Go Eagles. Let's go.
I always appreciate you jumping on, my friend. Take care of yourself.
All right, buddy. Talk to you later.
Josh Hennig here on GameNight 97.3 ESPN FM. Hey, Andy's excited. His team won. He wants the Eagles to win. I thought he brought up two very interesting points there. First, on the Pollard point, he kind of vibes with me that, this Tony Pollard love, it's a bit excessive. It's a bit problematic at this point. And, he didn't like my suggestion to him about the Chiefs wide receivers. And Andy's a guy who knows this stuff very well. He's very good at projecting these things. And, he may be right. This may be a Travis Kelce, Clyde Edwards-Helaire game versus the Colts. And MVS might see only a handful of targets, Harmon a handful of targets. And at the end of the night, Juju may only walk away with 10 or 11 fantasy points. You heard Andy say, if I can't guarantee a guy is going to get me at least 10 fantasy points, he can't be anything more than a flex play for me. And I know a lot of people are having to consider, what do they do this weekend? Because when we watch two of the best quarterbacks of the last 30 years play this Sunday, Rodgers versus Brady, which you can hear right here on 97.3 ESPN FM, and they have half of their receiving corps on both sides of the field completely unavailable. Gonna be interesting. Scotty Miller? Randall Cobb? Where you at? Stand up. You might be the next contestant on who's the Hall of Famer throwing a touchdown to. All right, we'll check in with the guys on the text board, 609-403-0973. Eagles win, Eagles lose. I'll give you my keys to the game and my prediction for the game on the other side, plus some picks for the weekend in college football in the NFL. I'm Josh Hennig, hanging out with you here on a Friday, 97.3 ESPN FM.
Tonight on ESPN Radio.
Ronald Acuna Jr. with a bomb.
Two teams hunting for October go head-to-head in a critical showdown. While the Atlanta Braves are fighting for the NL East lead, the Philadelphia Phillies are in a battle for the NL wild card.
Racing over there, Schwarber, did he make the catch? He did! Oh, my goodness.
The Braves at the Phillies. Listen to Major League Baseball on 97.3 ESPN, South Jersey's sports leader. Coverage begins at 7 p.m.
Hey Birds fans, Boardwalk Honda is kicking off the season with great savings on your next vehicle. Shop and save on our new all-star lineup, including your favorite new Honda models. Right now, get 1.9% APR financing for 48 months on a new 2022 Honda Passport, Pilot, or Ridgeline. Stop in and tackle these deals today. Visit us in Egg Harbor Township or online at BoardwalkHonda.com. And remember, from Maine to Miami, nobody beats a Boardwalk deal.
You wash your hands and brush your teeth, but what about your nose? How do you clean your nose? With Navage. Navage pulls saline in one nostril, around the back of the nose, and out the other nostril, flushing out allergens, mucus, dirt, and germs, and it's why nose cleaning is the next evolution in daily personal hygiene. People try Navage for lots of reasons: sinusitis, allergies, snoring, things that make it hard to breathe through your nose. But over time, they also find that cleaning their nose makes them feel better, a lot better. Nearly 3 million Navage users have written more than 100,000 reviews, averaging 4.7 stars, saying things like, best product I've ever used, and amazing, I love my Navage. That's because Navage helps you breathe better, sleep deeper, and snore less. But the biggest payoff is improved health. Here's the key point. Navage is good personal hygiene, and it's going to help you stay healthier. At Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, Target, and online. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E. Clean nose, healthy life.
Hey, this is Josh Hennig reminding you to kick off football season at FanDuel Sportsbook at Bally's in Atlantic City. Bet, watch, and win all season long. Plus, enjoy your favorite games from all over the world with 10 betting kiosks, 5 betting windows, 13 big screen TVs, and plenty of comfortable seating. Just head over to FanDuel Sportsbook at Bally's to get in on all the action this season. FanDuel wants every bettor's experience to be enjoyable and fun. Visit FanDuel.com/playwell to learn more. Must be 21 or older to play and present in New Jersey. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. Thinking about gas mileage? If your check engine light is on, it may be affecting your MPGs, but the free AutoZone Fix Finder service can help. With the most complete free warning light report backed by technician-verified fixes, you'll know what's affecting your gas mileage and more, and you don't have to drive too far to find the fix. The free AutoZone Fix Finder service is available at all 6,200 stores.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
See details at AutoZone.com.
The opioids I was prescribed made me feel worse.
I was pregnant, addicted, and scared.
I thought painkillers would get me back on the field faster. I was wrong.
Then I heard about 844-REACH-NJ.
I got into treatment and delivered a healthy baby girl.
844-REACH-NJ was the call I needed to make.
I'm glad I made the call.
I made the call.
Hello, REACH-NJ.
If you or someone you love is struggling with addiction, call 844-REACH-NJ from the New Jersey Department of Human Services.
Okay, everyone gather around. I have some exciting
Running her shoe factory, Kendra talks the talk and walks the walk.
We're switching to green energy.
She needs a biotech consultant to erase her carbon footprint.
All operations will net zero emissions.
Indeed can help her hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. You can schedule and conduct virtual interviews all from your employer dashboard. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
You finally got that new car, so you called your insurance company.
Your call is important to us. Please hold.
We are the tippy top, we're top insurance.
You ended that call with their jingle stuck in your head. Then you called NJM.
Thanks for calling NJM Insurance. This is Claudia. Let's see if we can save you up to 25% on your auto insurance.
No jingles or mascots, just great insurance. Visit NJM.com for a quote.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along, which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. Just go to this exclusive web address, ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Rezzle is the world's #1 virtual reality sports trainer. Whatever your team, your sport, your ability, improve your game and train like a pro. Rezzle. Reactions, performance, accuracy, stamina, resilience. Train at home in the Rezzle Sports and Fitness VR training arena. Search Rezzle, REZZIL. Harder, stronger, smarter. The world's #1 virtual reality sports trainer. Available now on MetaQuest.
And Doug. Hey, listener. Welcome to Limu's Karaoke Lounge, where Liberty Mutual customizes your car insurance so you only pay for what you need, and the music never stops. Hit it. There's an emu with a full-time job. His partner's Doug, but Limu's the heartthrob. Grubs and worms, that's what Limu eats. Gotta fuel up to save you money and hit the streets. Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Hey, this is Josh Hennig reminding you to trust Jenkins Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. Because when we needed to make the 97.3 ESPN studio comfortable, that's who we called, and you should too. No need to call the drain guy, the heater guy, or the plumbing guy. Jenkins technicians are trained to do it all. For new heating and air installation, service and maintenance, ductless air conditioning systems, water heaters, boilers, oil service, plumbing and drain cleaning services, call 609-641-6262. Online at jenkinsandsons.com.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
All right, wrapping up the show as promised, I'll give you my thoughts for the Eagles game this Sunday. All right, here are my keys to the game. Number one, as I mentioned earlier in the show, if Landon Dickerson is unavailable to play, then I'm leaning on the run game. I'm leaning on the Jalen Hurts triple option. I'm running Sanders. I'm running Gainwell. I'm running Scott. I'm just telling the big boys up front, go eat, okay? Frankly, actually, Lane Johnson's had a very good year so far this year, and I think he would enjoy shoving some people around for the running game. So if I am the Eagles, if Suo Pettit is starting instead of Dickerson because of an injury, got to run the ball. That's your first key. Your second key is you got to do to Wentz what you did to Kirk Cousins, and you have an advantage. You know Wentz intimately. Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, Josh Sweat, TJ Edwards. These guys know Wentz. Even Marcus Epps, they saw him in practice. They know about his tendencies, the things he likes to do versus not do, his bad habits. Got to take advantage of Wentz. Got to get after him like you got after Kirk Cousins. Control the game on offense. Dictate the pace of the game. Win time of possession. Go get the quarterback. Eagles will win this game on Sunday. You know, Washington's defense has been really poor. And so I'm going to go with Eagles 30. Washington, I think Washington can score a little bit. I'm going to go Washington 21. I feel like, you know, Scott Turner's has been doing a really good job as the offensive coordinator down in Washington. I got a feeling that he's going to see something in Gannon's defense that's going to allow them to score a couple touchdowns in this game. But I think ultimately the Eagles will control the game, and the 30-27 score it's going to look closer on the scoreboard statistically than it was on the field. All right, a couple thoughts for the college football weekend before I let you guys go. I mentioned it yesterday. Kansas, Duke. I think Kansas is going to take out Duke. I think Kansas will be 4-0 after this game, and their schedule gets really interesting. Here's the schedule for tomorrow on 97.3 ESPN FM. We got Clemson versus Wake Forest. I think it's going to be a very close game between Clemson and Wake Forest in that game. That's your 12 noon game after Billy Schwein in the locker room, followed by Tennessee versus Florida on the Touchdown Radio Network. In the nightcap, Ohio State versus Wisconsin. Coming up next, Phillies, Braves, right here on 97.3 ESPN FM.
Schwein, Pete Thompson, and Mike Carlin join me in the studio. We'll talk Eagles football as the Birds head to our nation's capital to face the Commanders. The sportsbook consigliere Dave Sherpan checks in from Las Vegas with his smart plays for this weekend's action. Hour 2, we'll talk Phillies baseball and go on the mound with Tommy Green. Brought to you by Aaron Beta's Golf and Performance Club. Don't forget, Sunday morning we're at Yesterday's in Marmora for our Eagles pregame show. It's the locker room with Billy Schwein, Saturday morning from 10 a.m. to noon on 97.3 ESPN.
And I will be with Billy Schwein Sunday at Yesterday's in Marmora over on, it's called Roosevelt Boulevard, but it's other people known as 34th Street Bridge into Ocean City is that boulevard. But I'll be with Billy Schwein that morning. All right, let's go break down the full slate because those of you who watch on the YouTube channel, you get the bonus content. You get the extra stuff for liking the video, hitting that subscribe button. I appreciate you. jumping on the show. So here's your extra content for the weekend. You heard me mention in passing Kansas and Duke. Kansas is a -7, so they're a touchdown favorite at home in Lawrence in this game. And that's a big thing to keep in mind because these are 2 3-0 teams. And what the odds makers are telling you, subconsciously on their part is they're telling you that Kansas is better than you think they are. Whenever that happens, you got to trust the odds makers because their entire careers are bent on having the right information. So I lean Kansas in this 3-0 versus 3-0 matchup. Clemson at Wake Forest. I think Wake Forest can win this game. I'm not 100% sold on them winning the game, but I do think that there's a chance that they can win. Plus 7.5 feels a little bit too rich, so I'm riding with Wake Forest to cover versus Clemson. I have no idea. This is a situation where I don't know if the book odds makers and me are on the same page, but this Indiana team has been way, way more impressive than I expected. They beat a tough Illinois team. They ran away from Idaho for the second half of that game, and they beat a high-power Western Kentucky team in overtime in a shootout. And they're going to Cincinnati, 3:30 in the afternoon. It's a prime slot. Okay, and this game will be on ESPN2, for goodness sake. And why is Cincinnati favored by 16.5? Cincinnati lost to Arkansas. They looked at that score is not even the true story of that game. That game was a blowout physically in the trenches. And then Cincinnati dominated Kennesaw State, which is arguably one of the 4 worst college football programs in the country. And then they handily beat one of the worst Mid-Atlantic Conference teams, MAC teams in college football. I'm not impressed with Cincinnati. This 16.5, I think, is more of a reflection of people thinking Cincinnati is better than they are at 2-1. Indiana's 3-0. Watch out. Look, we're going to hear the game tomorrow, 97.3 ESPN. Tennessee is -10.5. I'm going with Tennessee. I think this Florida team is fool's gold. I know that Utah fans are going to want Florida to play a close game or potentially win it because it'll help their resume when it comes to the college football playoff. But I'm sorry. I just don't believe. I'm not a believer. I don't believe. Maybe I'm a horrible person. I don't know. But I think Tennessee's got a very good defense. I think it's played very well. You saw what they did against Keaton Slovis, who's a much better quarterback, throwing the ball wise than Anthony Richardson is. I'm going to go with the 10.5 here. I got a stat for you guys. Okay, those of you watching on the YouTube channel, thank you for tuning in at the end of the show here. Exclusive YouTube content only. You guys know me and my belief in Sam Pittman and those Arkansas Razorbacks. Arkansas, under Sam Pittman, is 11-4 against the spread in games they are underdogs. And they have won 5 of those 15 games outright, including a win last year against Texas A&M. And you could argue that this Texas A&M team is not as good as they were last year. This is going to be a rock fight between 2 schools that were in the old Southwest Conference. For those of you who are over the age of 30, Southwest Conference was where it was at. We talk about the SEC today like it's the greatest conference in the world. Now, back in the 80s and 90s, the Southwest Conference, Texas, Texas A&M, Texas Tech, Arkansas, Houston, TCU, SMU, that was a football psycho fest down there. It was craziness. This is a rematch of that old rivalry from years ago. I think Arkansas gets it. That 2.5 looking pretty appealing. I might even say just take Arkansas outright in that situation. And finally, on the college football slate, Utah is a road favorite of 15.5 points. Arizona State. Remember, Arizona State fired Herm Edwards, or quote unquote, a mutual agreed dismissal. I mean, come on. That's ridiculous. But no head coach. The stability of the Arizona State program is just falling apart altogether. I expect a physical Utah team to go down to Arizona State, and beat them up in the late Saturday Pac-12 action. So those are your college football picks. Really quick on the NFL picks. You heard me pick the Eagles. I got them winning the game this weekend. I got the Chiefs covering the 5.5 against the Colts. I think the loss of Shaq Leonard for the Colts is one of their best defensive players. It's going to be a huge blow for them against the Chiefs. Colts just do not look good right now. Lions, Vikings, I got to admit, I like the over. I think it's going to be a bounce-back game for Kirk Cousins and the Vikings offense. The Lions do not have a very good defense. This over-under right now is 52.5. Give me the over. I feel like this is going to be like a 38-30 kind of game we're talking about, where Cousins and Goff are just gunning it left and right in a shootout, and then Cousins pulls away at the end, or Dalvin Cook runs in for a touchdown. A couple other NFL games before I let you guys go that I'm keeping an eye on. This is the ultimate stay-away game really quick before I let you guys go. Bills, Dolphins, Bengals, Jets. Be ye not deceived, okay? Do not let last week's results manipulate your feelings for these games. The Bills are going down to Miami, and we know how that affects people. That heat, that humidity, that's probably going to be a close game. Bengals at Jets. I know the last thing we saw was the Bengals lose to the Cowboys and the Jets beat the Browns. Again, be ye not deceived, okay? The Bengals are the better football team, and I expect Joe Burrow and that team to go out there and beat up on the Jets. And then finally, Jags, Chargers. Should be a close game. If Justin Herbert can't play or he's not 100% healthy, Trevor Lawrence could try to go out to California and steal this game with Doug Peterson. All right, thank you for all watching on the YouTube channel. Hit the like button, subscribe to Josh Hennig on YouTube. Follow me on Twitter at Josh Hennig. You can engage with me all weekend. Like I said, if you want to hang out with Billy Schweim in the locker room, I'll be there as well for Eagles Sunday over at yesterday's in Marmora. Have a great night, everybody, and I'll catch you right here on this YouTube channel on Monday.